I decided God wanted me to be a party person. What else could the botched application mean? My dreams were dashed, and so I dived back into drug scene. I went to popping Percocet and Oxy to balance out the depression I was feeling. The week before high school ended, I'd met a girl named Natalie. She was blonde with blue eyes, funny as hell, and a little ditzy. I charmed her with texts and phone calls, and soon we were a couple. I wasn't the best boyfriend, that's for sure. Natalie didn't know about the Oxycontin or other pills, but watched me smoke joint after joint, turning into a stoner. I soon broke up with her. Not too long after that, Natalie informed me she was pregnant. The baby was mine. Of course it was. I knew Natalie wasn't the girl I was going to marry, but there I was. After she told me, I drove over to her house, and her mom and dad were waiting for me at the kitchen table. We sat there not looking at each other as if someone had died. Her dad glanced at me, and I could tell I wasn't exactly his idea of a son-in-law. Brother, I thought, I'm right with you on that. I'm not ready for this. I want to have this baby, Natalie said. Her parents' eyes went a bit wider. Well, are you two even together? Her dad asked. I thought you'd broken up. I looked at Natalie. I could tell that behind her brave face she was scared. I felt like it was time to man up. Sir, as of this minute, we're back together again. I'm going to do everything I can to give that baby the life I never had. Her dad nodded without too much conviction, and I gave Natalie a hug and was out of there. I wanted to be a man of my word. I took any job that I could find, mostly odd jobs in construction and landscaping. I kept telling myself that when I put enough money together, I'd go back to school and start on a real career. But I'd heard my mother say the same thing 100 times until we moved to Prescott, she had begun living out what she had said. I knew school wasn't my salvation. I wasn't cut for book learning. I so wanted to do the right thing, but I had no guidebook on how to get about it. I started going to the gym that winter, trying to get into shape. I stopped seeing the worst of my stoner friends and cut down on my drug intake. I was doing the best I could in my new role as an expecting father. I knew I had no right to be a father in my present condition, but no matter what I did, I saw my daughter's life becoming a remake of mine. Dad, struggling mom, minimum wages, a restless wandering that led nowhere. I couldn't handle that. I didn't want to be another generation of McDonoughs to be too strung out for the good life. Natalie was a few months from delivering, and I became desperate to get work, any work. I walked into McDonald's and filled out an application, but nothing happened. Then the same with In-N-Out Burger, Costco, and Walmart. It was a shock to me. I was 19 years old and basically unemployable. Depression shadowed my days. Some mornings I'd lie in bed and feel like I couldn't get up if the sheets were on fire. I saw no way of a good thing could happen in my life for the next 40 years. It was all going to be black, depressing, drug addicted shit and nonsense. And then I got arrested. It was a typical thing. You do insane shit every day, and then you get busted for something completely ordinary. 4 months earlier, my buddy and I had been leaving Walmart, stoned out of our minds, when he'd spotted a convertible sitting in the top lot with its top down. Hey, Brendan, look at this, he called out to me. I looked over. There was a GPS unit, a nice one, sitting on the guy's dash, and a radar detector. Should I grab it, dude? I was floating on Planet Stoner. What? The shit inside. Should I grab it? If you have the balls, I said, which you don't. I was just busting on him. We didn't steal things. We were partiers, not thieves. I got in my car without a second thought. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my friend plop into the passenger seat with the GPS unit and radar detector in his hand. Whatever, I thought. We rolled out of there to another party, and I forgot all about it. Later on, I stuck the GPS under my bed and never used it. It was a goof, a stupid dare. I don't approve of stealing things, but really, grabbing a GPS was pretty low on the totem pole of what we were doing at the time. Cut to 4 months later. A friend from high school returned from college, and we decided to meet up at the gym owned by our wrestling coach. We'd goof off and lift weights. I drove to the place and slapped hands with my friends and his dad, who was a mentor of mine from high school, and then we went into the gym and started lifting. That's when three guys walked in Dockers, long sleeve shirts, and ties walked in and said, Is Brenda McDonough here? I walked over, still breathing hard from the workout. I'm Brendan, I said. They showed me their badges. Prescott PD. You're under arrest, one of them told me. I was so ashamed. My face burned. My friend, his father, and my old coach looked at me, and you could tell they were embarrassed to be there, to be seeing me at such a low moment in my life. The funny thing is, I thought they were busting me for selling pot. Turned out it was the GPS centering under my bed that had done me in. I was charged with a felony, receiving stolen property. The cops had gotten my license plate number from a surveillance video and had been following me around for months, thinking I was the head of some major theft ring. How they managed to miss my rampant dealing and out of control drug use is beyond me. I spent the next few nights in jail over Christmas. I saw another guy who'd been arrested at the same time I was get released in the morning, but my mom wanted to teach me a lesson. She refused to bail me out. I spent my time teaching other inmates about how to get federal aid for college. Later, I'd run into one of the guys I met that night and found out he was enrolled in school because of my advice. I got a kick out of that. But mostly, I felt that my life was essentially over. Deadbeat dad, felon, loser. Those were the words that floated through my mind as I sat on a concrete bunk. The DA tried to get me and my buddy convicted of a string of robberies that we had nothing to do with. He was asking for 15 years for both of us, but there was no evidence because we hadn't done the crimes, and the judge threw out the charges. I was left with one felony count of trafficking in stolen property. I pleaded guilty, my first conviction, because I'd shown some direction in my life, illustrated by the fire academy and the junior ROTC that I'd completed in high school. I was given probation. If I stayed clean, the charge would be knocked down to a misdemeanor within a few years, but still, I was a felon. I hated that word. I hated being known as a thief. It was another black mark on a life that was going nowhere. When my daughter Michaela was born on March 2nd, 2011, I was there. I picked her up for the first time, and a strange feeling came over me. I couldn't look her in the eye. I felt so weird in her presence. It was like I already let her down just by being who I was. I couldn't take the innocence in her eyes, the not knowing. I knew that what she was in for, and it wasn't pretty. Her eyes were so pure. It was heartbreaking to me. I thought about suicide often, especially after another rejection on the job front. It was better to erase myself before my daughter got to know what a no account loser I was. Maybe then she could make up stories about me. He was misunderstood. He tried, but never got the breaks. She'd have these little legends to comfort her. Meanwhile, my mom was done with me. She'd kicked me out of the house we were living in, and I went to stay on a buddy's couch. I had one bag of clothes, a couple pairs of sneakers, my toothbrush, and a razor, and that was about it. I really didn't have a single dollar to my name. I kept telling myself I was done with drinking and drugs. I'd be at a party flying on Molly and telling myself, okay, this is it. Tomorrow I'm going clean. That would last 24 hours. When you start to go sober, you realize there's nothing in your life to replace the drugs. You get clean and then you wait for the good feelings to come flooding in, but they don't. The old bad feelings come instead. You're a failure. You're a deadbeat dad. You suck. And you're like, "Oh, right, this is why I do drugs." And you go out and find a buddy and pop some pills. 3 weeks go by and you're hooked even deeper and you see no way out except death. My depression got so bad I even smoked heroin for the first time. A sweet numbness crept over my body and all my worries seemed to float off like birthday balloons. I can't lie, I loved heroin. That spring, after my daughter was born, I found myself in Phoenix in a trailer park. I was there picking up some heroin from a dealer who I'd scored from before. The trailer was a mess, food cartons everywhere, broken Xbox games, dirty clothes thrown on the floor. The sun was baking through the roof. It smelled bad. I was sitting on the couch with my buddy. We'd scored the heroin, but were too high to move. We were watching the dealer, a Mexican gangbanger, play with his gun. He was dressed in a wife beater and jeans with a chain dangling on the side, and he was spinning the 9mm around his finger, pointing it at things in the apartment, the TV, the window, whatever. He was silent, his expression alternating between bored and pissed off. His two kids, aged maybe 4 and 6, were playing on the Xbox to my left, yelling in Spanish and working the controls like maniacs. The dealer's girlfriend was dozing on the bed. There was a knock on the aluminum door. The dealer stood up and stuck his gun in the back of his waistband. He walked to the door. He seemed nervous. Are we about to get shot here?" I said to my buddy. He shrugged. I heard a voice outside, ragged, quiet. "Got any?" It was a crackhead, apparently. The dealer walked out, and he and the crackhead started arguing. "Fuck you, little bitch," the dealer shouted. "You come here, you pay my price." The crackhead said something unintelligible. The dealer yelled in Spanish, "Mexican standoff." I thought to myself, but it wasn't funny. I looked at the girl on the bed and the two kids. I wondered if the dealer had pulled his gun out. The walls of the trailer would offer zero protection against any bullets flying our way. What am I doing here? I asked myself. This is a scene from someone else's life, not mine. "Let's go," I said to my buddy. We went out, shuffled around the dealer and the addict. He was a white dude with squared off glasses wearing a tank top. The guy was begging now. We got in my buddy's car. I'd sold mine a couple weeks before and used the last of the money to buy the 2 packets of heroin in my pocket. Later, I managed to scrape enough together to buy an old Ford Explorer, but right then I was depending on friends for transport. If this ain't bottom, I thought, I don't want to know what is. I had nothing to call my own except Michaela. I was so tired of the life I was leading. Who would care if I gave up? No one, least of all me. 3 days later, I heard about an opening for Hot Shots.